Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today is another Tubi Spotlight. We have right now the director from the excellent movie that's streaming on Tubi right now, Ghost, Dylan Brown. What's up, buddy?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me on.
Man, I'm glad you came on, man. I got a chance to watch Ghost. It's an amazing movie. I grew up in the '80s. I love the cheesy action horror movies, and Ghost has it checks all those boxes off.
I'm glad. We Roger Corman was like my big motivator. Like watching all of his stuff was really what was helping me get through. Because when you're making a B movie, you're kind of faced with some decision making where it's like, is this B movie like is this good bad or is this just bad bad, right? And so I watched a lot of interviews with Roger Corman, and I was realizing that that's the epitome of like embracing the cheese. Like that guy knew what they were making, and he never tried to promote himself or his movies as anything but. And I would say that it was like about halfway through making that movie when I realized like I've got to really devote myself to embracing the cheese. And that kind of became like a saying. We used to say it all the time on the set, and actors questioned it a little bit. There's things that would be happening, and I think they're all looking behind the camera at each other like, what are we making right now? But once people saw the context of it, I think they started to figure out like, okay, this is the type of, vibe that we were going for. And
So, Dylan, tell everybody about Ghost who hasn't seen it yet.
so Ghost is it's an interesting movie because it can be watched completely standalone, but it actually does have a predecessor called The Flock, a movie that I did about a year ago. And The Flock was an interesting movie because it was I had bitten off more than I could chew. I'm still proud of what we did with it, but it was like all these storylines coming together and culminating in this big event with Satanists, and they're tracking down a cult that's trying to raise a demon, and then you have these mercenaries that are trying to stop that from happening, and all this was going on, and I was making the whole movie for like $2,500, and it was like, what are you doing? You can't have 40 people in a movie with $2,500 and make this work. Um, but we did, and I'm still proud of what we pulled off. But there was a character in that movie, Ghost, who's a very small character actually, and he's just kind of introduced lightly, and he shows up. Uh, and the whole time that we were working together, Michael Rock is the actor. I kept telling myself I have to work with this guy again. Like he's my favorite guy on this whole set, and all I could think of was you've written him out of the story in this movie. Like, how do you bring him back? So, in standard '80s style fare, we concocted a story that basically is it a sequel? I guess you could call it that, but it's more of like a spin-off. So it can totally be watched on its own. But Ghost is about a mercenary. It's a secret organization of mercenaries contracted by the Vatican Church to eliminate the threats of cultists and demons from the world very quietly, very like religious Men in Black style or something. Um, and Ghost is one of these characters, and he's a very conflicted guy. He's got a pretty rough relationship with his father, who actually ends up contacting him to kind of warn him of a big event, and that's kind of what kicks the movie off. And then Ghost has to get with his team, and basically they're trying to stop a very dangerous cultist who calls himself the Chosen One from basically raising a fallen angel.
And what I love about this movie, so this is a POV movie. So this is shot in, was it third person, almost like a Call of Duty video game. So like
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
like,
like a first person shooter.
yeah, third person shooter. And
um we basically so I wanted it to kind of play out like a mockumentary, so it have like a documentary feel, like somebody took the footage and cut it together, and they added in music and they added in voiceovers and things. But I'm a big fan of documentaries. Like some of the greatest scary things I've ever seen have been documentaries that Netflix did, and it's like completely freaked me out because they're real, and I just kind of love the story building and the tension that they build while constructing these stories, and you're just waiting for that big ending. So we thought, let's sort of model that, and we'll do a documentary on this church mercenary guy who's kind of doing like a tell-all. That was the initial thought. And then we thought, well, if they're a secret organization, like why would he be documenting all this? So Mike and I had these very famous talks we would call all the time. It was like our couch talks. He would come over and we'd hang out in my workshop where we build all our stuff for the movies, and we would chill on the couch and we would start kind of just bouncing ideas. And we started thinking, what if you look back in history with religious texts, there were scribes, there were people writing these books. So we thought in the new world, in an updated world, if there were biblical events happening, well, we wouldn't necessarily grab a pen and paper to capture those things. Maybe you would have video cameras documenting those things, and it'd be uploaded into some sort of digital Bible database, right, that the church has. So we thought maybe these mercenaries would have these scribes with them. And so that's where I got to come in as a character, essentially, who's running the camera. But I'm a voiceless character named Monk who follows Ghost everywhere and documents all this stuff for the church, basically for other mercenaries to use for studying, or for the church to maybe look for trends on, demonic activity, and they're documenting all this stuff. And this just kind of happens to be one of those stories in this big universe.
And the villain, and the main villain in this movie, who is the head of the cult leader, oh, he is menacing. I don't know the name of that actor, but he did an amazing job. Like, he comes off as disturbing, creepy, amazing villain.
Yeah, so Joshua Myron McKinney is his name, and he is actually he's a professional wrestler. So he's not on like a big circuit, but he does play the heel as his role as in the wrestler. So he's used to playing the bad guy, and he's got massive crowds of people, hundreds and hundreds of people watching his events, and they're all booing him, and he's living it up as the bad guy. So it was like a no-brainer to bring him in, because we thought if we're gonna have a cult leader, especially in an 80s B movie style cult leader, he's got to be very over the top. And what better way than to bring in a guy who's used to being in front of crowds, and doing that stuff. And you're not going to believe this, but this is the first time he's ever acted in front of a camera.
Really?
He was actually terrified of his performance, and he kept asking me multiple times, like, do you think I'm doing okay? Do you think this is any good? And I told him, I said, Josh, of all of the people, there's people in this movie that I've worked with many times. Even, Michael and I have worked together in multiple projects. I told Josh, I said, you're the one I actually had to give the least amount of direction to, because it was so easy to just sit back and watch you work. And there were times when I would give him sort of like a starting point and then just tell him, just go with it. And he'd say, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, these are the points you need to hit, but you deliver it however you want. Take as long as you need, and just go. And he would start going, and I could see even the other actors in the room were just transfixed by this guy, because he's a natural entertainer.
Yes, did a great job. He definitely. You watch him, and you're like, is this guy real? Like, it comes off as he is really menacing and disturbing.
Yeah.
Great job.
Yeah, he's got a great balance, I felt, with of kind of like he's this attractive guy, and he's dressed nice, and he can do this kind of charming talk, but his voice, he can like go from an astute, gentleman to like this very gravelly, menacing growl when he wants to. And so it was so much fun to watch him work.
That's amazing. Now, you are big into your found footage. I love found footage movies. And it seems like found footage is having a resurgence right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say a lot of that is credited to some of the what we're calling like the heavyweights right now in the division. And it's my friend Dutch Marriage, who did the Horror in the High Desert movies. If you haven't seen those, they are unbelievably good. But Dutch, he makes this movie on the cheap, but he has this unreal actors and a very good sense of how to scare people. and the movie just explode. I mean, and it's exploded for him to where he's being covered in the New York Times, and he's in every horror magazine. I mean, Fangoria and Bloody Disgusting, and he's always listed in top found footage movies now. So Dutch coming in and doing that as a guy who wasn't a big studio backed, creator. And then you have oh my gosh, there was the team behind Curse of Aurora, which was another really well received found footage movie out of Canada. Um, and Robbie Banfitch just recently did The Outwaters, which like exploded all over the place. Bloody Disgusting picks it up for distribution. So I think that these indie creators that are going into this realm and kind of trying to do some different things with the genre, I think that they're really the ones to credit for it, because I feel like they're bringing like an elegance to the genre that maybe a lot of people were associating found footage is it's only shaky cam and you never see anything and it's just a bunch of people screaming and that's it. And then you're seeing these people who are doing these new things, and they're doing the mockumentaries, or they're doing these very kind of Curse of Aurora is almost like a bloodless horror movie. It's a very scary movie with ghosts, but they didn't need the excessive violence to pull their story off. Or like Robbie goes the other way. Robbie does this Terrence Malick style shot found footage movie with like excessive amounts of entrails and blood everywhere, right? And so I think that they're proving that the genre has a lot of room to grow, because it's probably the least tapped into of all the horror genres. Um, and I think people were really hungry during COVID for new content. And so when stuff wasn't really coming out because all these big productions were halted, enter the indie creator, and these guys had these found footage movies sort of at the ready. So people were getting exposure to them. And I'm just trying to ride the wave. And the really cool thing about it is it's such a small kind of community right now, that Dutch and guys like Robbie and stuff have actually taken me under their wing, and they have allowed me to ask them questions and talk to them. I mean, Dutch talks to me a lot, and he watches my stuff and gives feedback, and you don't get that from quote unquote heavyweights in other genres. I imagine if I was to make a movie in the vein of The Conjuring, as much as I think James Wan and company are amazing, I don't see them having the time to sit and talk to some new guy and walk them through the process. Whereas here, these guys are very accessible. And I think the fans are picking up on that too. I think they know how much interconnectivity is going on, and I think they like that. They love the fact that their favorite movies are being kind of like mentors to new ones. So then they want to go seek out the new ones because they know that maybe somebody who made that one helped or had a hand in the upbringing of the next. And it's a really, really cool genre to be in right now.
It is, because I mean, in the what was it, late '90s, early 2000, the found footage was thrown out there. Fans loved it, and then around about 2005, 2010, we had the resurgence of the slashers
Yes.
and the paranormal, and it was forgotten about in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I've always been a huge fan, even from starting from the Blair Witch Project, and I'm glad to see that it's coming back and on an indie level as well.
Yeah, big time. And I think the other thing that's really cool for found footage is it doesn't just have to be horror. It's like Project X is a hilarious comedy about partying in college life, and they did it that way, which totally resonated with me because I went to Chico State University, which was like, Chico was in Playboy always is like a top 5 party school in the whole country. So
wow.
everybody's partying, and what did we all do? We had our, I didn't have a camera phone back then, but we had video cameras, and there was stuff on video that probably shouldn't be on video, but it was hilarious. And so to see an entire movie that was essentially one of those experiences was great and nostalgic for me. And then you've got End of Watch, which is like an unbelievable police drama done in the found footage way. And so I just think that I'm waiting for somebody to do a legit romance. So many people capture their relationships with videos now that I think there could be a really well done romance done in the found footage world. And I don't think anybody's done it yet, but that's such a cool thing about the genre is it can really be done in any way anybody wants to do it. I
It
mean,
was like
you and I could make one right now with this recorded call if we had a ghost come out of nowhere. It's
someone
a
comes back
yeah,
door.
it's a screen live found footage movie, and then they did that with Rob Savage did that with Host during COVID when they dropped that movie, and it was like, what? Somebody's making a Zoom call horror movie now?
Yeah,
Uh, not many other genres can get away with that.
not at all. So Dylan, what's next for you?
So, oh boy, it is. It's like a
I see
lot.
you're busy. I actually did an interview with your friend Ron, and he was telling me that you're balls to the wall.
I am busy. I'm very busy. I'm kind of in the mindset of I have the support of my wife right now to do this stuff, and my family is supportive of it. My mom and dad, are really saying, go for it. And I'm kind of at the point where it's like many times these fun experiences they have an ending. All good things must come to an end. So I don't want my time doing it to come to an end, and I think, oh, I was so close to making that movie, or why didn't I go with that far and do that movie? So I'm really just trying to take this on, and I'm like a professional weekend warrior with it. I mean, I have a regular job. I work for the Department of Defense actually as a program analyst, like root cause analyst for Lean Six Sigma. Basically, looking at jobs through the Army and trying to figure out like if there's something wrong in a process, and then we help identify it and fix it. So I work, my 40-hour shift on the Army base, and then on the weekends I balance dad life and husband life and trying to make movies, and that's why found footage works, because I can get away with the rawness, or I can film something in my garage and it's okay. I don't need to be on a set. We can construct stories around it. And so I'm like right smack dab on the middle in production on a secret project that I don't know when we're going to announce it. We're sort of waiting for a specific time when we're going to announce this. And then I'm in pre-production on a sequel to my Bigfoot movie called Tahoe Joe. Tahoe Joe is by far my most successful movie. And Michael Rock, who's the star of Ghost, is actually in that with me. And we play ourselves in that. It's a very grounded, meta kind of story. But over here by Reno, there's a famous legend of Tahoe Joe, which the funny thing is Tahoe Joe is actually a mountain man. Somehow, like in the 80s or something, somebody switched it to Bigfoot, and it like I don't know why that happened. So we ran with it, and we decided to make a documentary on it, but it's not a real documentary. We push it hard to feel like a real documentary until we actually run into Bigfoot, but that one blew up for us. That one did really well on Tubi, and so of course we're like, we got to go back to that universe. Everybody wants it. So I'm in pre-production on that. I'm actually building the Tahoe Joe Bigfoot suit in my garage right now.
Earlier, yeah.
He's over there in the corner. There's a big brown blob of it back there. And so I've got that going. And then Ash Hamilton, who did a film called Holes in the Sky. I don't know if you've seen that one. Holes in the Sky, the Sean Miller story, is a very well done sort of fake documentary on an alien encounter. And it's done very well for Ash. I think last time I checked on IMDb, I mean, it's got like, I mean, it has a good rating, but it's got like 13,000 votes or something. I mean, on IMDb, getting that many people to even go in there and rate is big time, because a lot of people don't want to take the time to do that, especially for an indie film. I mean, and that thing's been streamed hundreds of thousands of times. It's all over. And he's actually doing an end of the world anthology film called Effed: Tales from the End Times. And so Ash is
The trailer, or I saw a poster for that, and that looked good. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. So I'm directing one of the segments in that. He picked. There's 5 filmmakers, so Ash is one of them, and then myself. Um, John Eisberg, I think is his name. I'm terrible now that I'm sitting here being recorded and I can't remember names, which I'm awful with anyway. He just did that movie, The Final Summer, which is coming out pretty soon. It was kind of a festival hit. Ben Harrell, who's the documentary filmmaker, he's doing a segment, and then Josh Brucker, who's part of the Horror Dads group with me. Josh Brucker has a movie out currently called Mothman, and he has a new one on the way called The Woodman. And then Josh did a segment for this too. So we've kind of got this like awesome group of directors who came in to work on an end of the world story. And Ash basically turned us loose. He said, give me a short film and it all has to take place on the same day, but however the world ends is up to you. And we were just given a few months and give it to me by September. So it's been really fun to just come up with our own end of the world stories.
And that's releasing when?
I have no idea. I know that he wants to potentially have a festival screener by like October, because we're probably going to pitch it to the unnamed film festival, which is like the kind of the holy grail for found footage festivals, and it's usually based out of San Francisco. So I think he wants to get it ready for a submission to that, but I don't know distribution on that one. And then the secret project I'm working on, probably we're gonna actually try for probably a Christmas time look, because we've noticed that Christmas actually is really good for horror movies, which is dark to think about, but for some reason a lot of people want to watch horror around Christmas. And then Josh's movie The Woodman, which I was a producer on and got to do a little bit of some effects work on. That one is coming out, I think they're shooting for like around Thanksgiving on that one.
Okay.
And the Horror Dads group that I joined we're all dads, and we met online. We're all indie filmmakers or actors, and basically we do our own movies, but we sort of add each other on everything as a producer. And we oh my gosh, we lean on each other so much. It's like every time myself or Josh or somebody's struggling with a project, you can get in this group chat and we can talk to each other, and we're always like, you're okay, buddy, you're gonna get through it. Send me your footage, maybe I can offer some input. And so we created this group of dads that make scary movies, the Horror Dads, and we're cranking out content like crazy.
It's amazing to have that network.
And again, like I'm saying, it's this indie world, and then specifically this small genre, that is allowed for this to happen, because that's where Josh started too, is found footage stuff. And Hunter Nino, who's part of the group, with one of the founding members, he's an actor, but he's done most of his acting in found footage movies. And then Michael Rock, who has been my kind of staple. He and I, if I can real quick, I'll plug kind of what our mission is with our movies. So my actual mission with Michael is we cast veterans in all of our movies. Most of the cast is veterans or law enforcement or first responders. So in most of my movies, I have kind of foregone going with conventional actors and instead brought those people in, because what we learned is many former military members are using, or law enforcement are using acting as a PTSD coping mechanism.
Really?
And they were very, very like positively impacted by stepping in the shoes of, a character for a while. And so Michael is, not only did Michael go in and serve in Afghanistan and Iraq, and is an actual Green Beret, and a very highly decorated and highly respected Green Beret, but Michael now is part of an anti-child pornography task force, and he takes down child predators. So, I mean, the guy's like a literal hero outside of being a hero in my movies. But the problem with his job is, and he shared with me many times, is he is subjected to the worst of what humanity has to offer. And he has to see this stuff daily. Or his time in the military, he had to, be a part of very life-changing things that negatively impacted him. And Michael shared with me that acting has really helped him kind of put those things aside for a little while and deal with a lot of things. So it hit me where I started thinking, I can still do what I want to do, and I can tell these stories and make these movies, but if I can help people in the process, I would much rather have as many veterans in my films, and not really worry about traditionally trained actors, because I feel like we can train them. We can train them to say things how they need to be said or whatever. But then when I write movies like Ghost that rely heavily on the action aspect, I get to watch these guys do what they really did. And there's no really needing to worry about coordination because they know what they're doing. And so that's kind of basically what I do, and I'm going to continue to do that. Like as far as I get in this realm, um, you know, I am going to continue that mission and working with veterans. And I will always have vets involved in my movies in some way, shape, or form, whether they're in camera or they want to be on the crew, behind the camera, or maybe they've written a script and they want us to adapt it. That is our mission through and through before anything else.
Dylan, that is absolutely amazing. And I mean, hats off. I mean, that's amazing.
We're pretty proud of it, and it has been a blast too. I have had so much fun. There is not okay. I will tell you this right now. There is nothing more fun than seeing like, big buff 6 foot tall Green Berets and a 6'6", 280-pound Air Force special, whatever this guy was, who's this big giant man who's got arms as big around as my waist, laughing and giggling wearing a monster costume because we're trying to coordinate on set, and then we're like playing with swords like a bunch of little kids. I mean, it is so fun to see that happen, knowing what they're subjected to every day in the real world, or what they might. I've got them battling demons in my movies, and they're battling like, metaphorical demons in their brains all the time. And getting to see that side of them basically come in and play like grown-up G.I. Joe, and we're out there having fun and giggling and laughing like little kids, that is just like the most rewarding thing ever to me.
That is absolutely awesome. And Dylan, how can everyone find you on social media?
Yeah, we've got we're really active on Instagram and Facebook. It's just under Horror Nerd Productions. That's my personal kind of brand. And then there's also Horror Dads Production, Dads with a Z. And that both Facebook and Instagram, and we update those regularly. And that's pretty much where we're doing everything, because they're free platforms to use it on. I mean, we have some links to sites where we've got some merch, like you can buy Blu-rays or DVDs, and we've got some shirts and gear and stuff from another site, and those links are on our social media. But we pretty much just we run through social media because we like interacting. We like when people send us messages. It's fun to be approachable, because many of my heroes in the film world growing up, I'm never going to get to talk to. I can't approach them. And I'm not at all trying to say that we're some kind of heroes in the film world, but if somebody is a fan of our movies, I like knowing that they could reach out to us and we're easily accessible. And it's just fun. It's very fun to chat with fans and find out what they like. Sometimes what they didn't like. Them people on the internet, their opinions are very strong when they can hide behind a keyboard. And as much as I get upset sometimes with some of the really, kind of cruddy comments, many times if those comments are being said over and over again, that's when I have to take a moment and reflect and say, okay, where did we maybe go wrong? And we'll right the ship on the next one. But positive or negative, we like to be accessible. So social media, Horror Nerd Productions or Horror Dads Productions, Dads with a Z.
Awesome, my friend. Well, Dylan, I appreciate you coming on. Everyone, please check out Ghost. It's streaming on Tubi right now. It's a fun, cheesy B movie, action, gory movie, great time. Dylan, I would love to have you back on in the future to promote any future project.
Oh man, I'd have a blast. This was so much fun.
Most definitely, my friend. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for coming to Tubi Tuesday, Tubi Spotlight. Thank you for coming to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.